also known as Priyer on most websites. I got my name from my day job. I'm a tow truck operator. That's my little mini-me. I started picking locks as for work, unlocking cars and whatnot. This is my first pick set. I got that at a conference, and it's the only set that they had left. So that's how I started picking locks. And now I pick them basically just as a hobby. So it's purely a hobby for me. But I do enjoy it quite a bit. I like picking stuff that people say are unpickable, just because I like the puzzle aspect of opening up locks. So most locks have 4 steps to getting them open, and you'll see all 3 locks that I'm going to talk about take the exact same 4 steps. So these are the four steps. The first step you have to do when picking something that has never been done before is do the research. A lot of good places to do the research is YouTube is one. Google Patents is another great source for doing the research. A lot of the information that I got from Google Patents, and the lock makers actually lay out how to get it open in the patent. Step 2 is form a hypothesis. If they didn't tell you how to get it open, you got to figure out a hypothesis, come up with a plan, figure out how to get it open. Step 3, make the tools. It's fairly straightforward, as you'll see. Step 4, open the lock. Again, just straightforward, as long as step 2 was right. So I'm going to start off the Yuema 7. Actually, before I start with that, I have here the Bowley padlock and Bowley lock that are, this one's disassembled. The circlip's off the back, so it's in pieces. If you guys want to check it out, you can pass it around. And just so you can see how it operates. And so you put the key in, turn it 45 degrees, push it in about 1/8 of an inch, and then turn it 90 degrees to get the shackle open. So the Yuema 750, this one is going to be the most controversial of the 3 locks, as you'll see later on. So step 1, do the research. Basically, get yourself a lock. Open it up, take it apart, look at it very closely. This is the face of the lock. Here you see how it's assembled inside the door. If it would be mounted to a door, that's the final assembly. This is from LTI, on YouTube. He did a great video where he actually has a cutaway of Yuema 750. As you can see here, there's an inner sidebar and an outer sidebar. And this outer sidebar rides on the outside of the core until you have the right key inserted and the inner sidebar drops down. So this one doesn't have the key inserted, so this core just keeps spinning freely until that sidebar falls in and links the back of the core here. That sidebar links the rear of the core to the front of the core, and then you can operate the lock. So that's all part of the research, figure out how the lock works. This is another, just basically taking a close look at every element in the lock. So here now you see the right key is inserted. The outer sidebar has now fallen into the core, which links the 2 together, and now you can operate the lock. This is the key. As you can see, it's a slider lock. So it's a one-piece, going to be a one-piece slider. Now, these only have 4 different depth cuts. These are the sliders here, so they're all just one piece. Can everybody hear me okay?
No, sorry guys, we've got to do a battery change. I'm very sorry. Just one second. No, because it'll be in the off position. Very sorry about that, guys.
All right, that better? Yeah. There we go. Okay, so now we have 4 different depths of sliders. They're marked. They got 1 notch here, 2 notches, 3 notches, and 0 notches. I call it a 4 because if you look here, the 4 cut is deeper than the 3. So I just called it a 4. There they are lined up. You can see the groove moves over slightly. So there's 10 wafers in this lock. Each of them has its own spring, as you would expect. That's with the right key inserted. You can't really see the groove on that one. So going through, you form a hypothesis. Well, you got to think of how the lock works. So there's 2 springs at the top that push the outer sidebar into the cores. But you have 10 springs pushing the inner sidebar up. So picking one at a time won't work on this lock because every time you release the tension, each one of these springs is stronger than the springs pushing the outer sidebar down. So you got to find a way to keep that sidebar down when you move or either keep the wafers out of the way, or you got to figure out a way to get that outer sidebar into the core. If you look at the front of the face of the lock, you can see there's a gap at the front. There's a gap right here, all the way around. I don't know why they did this. And they did fix it in the 760 model. It's a full face, so you can't, this one, if you look closely, you just might have enough room to put a shim in there, if you're thinking about it. And if you look at the core, you can see that the outer sidebar doesn't go all the way to the front, so you have a little bit of room here. And if you look at the body of the lock here, the Bible, you got the front spring here, and the second spring, the rear spring, is in the middle. It's not towards the back, it's in the middle. So maybe if you move enough wafers out of the way, you could get that outer sidebar to tilt down, and you might be able to get a shim up above the outer sidebar. So that was my hypothesis. So I made the tools to get the wafers out of the way. I made a dual-pronged rake, basically. Just a dual-pronged rake. And I'm not trying to get all 10 wafers because I only have to get the first few. Either the first 4 or first 6. And I could get that, if I could get that sidebar to tilt down, I'll be able to get a shim in the core. So that's what I was thinking. So I cut it to a point here where this width is less than the width of the outer sidebar. And then I just put a little curve in it. Just curve it up just a little bit so it'll go up underneath the outer sidebar. And step 4, pick the lock. So I put in my shim. I rake the front wafers, only the first 4 in this case. I was able to get the shim up above the sidebar. And then I raked the rest of them and pushed the shim in as I'm raking the rest of the wafers. And I made the rake thin enough that I could reach the rear wafers without touching the front ones. Right? You go from the bottom of the keyway up and you can reach the rear ones without touching the front ones. So then push the shim in, then use the tension wrench and turn the cord. And then I could turn the cam at the same time. I said it's the most controversial because, well, hold on another step first. The downside with this method is these shims are one-time use. You can't use them again. I tried. So I said that they're the most controversial because if you have these end caps installed, these end caps that they come with, you can't get the shim in here into the body of the lock. But if they're installed, this is the length of the screws. So this is either on the outside or the head of the screw will be on the outside. So you can get those off. We also got to remember, people are lazy. Just because it's in the packaging does not mean it's going to be installed on the door. Right? This is no longer a Euro cylinder. It's now an oval. So you need different hardware. So yeah, if they did put this one on the outside, you could easily punch that, put an easy out on the end of it and back that screw out, take that off. Or you could just put a screwdriver in here, pry that off. This is really thin sheet metal. You pry that off and then replace it once you're in. So now for the forever lock. Step 1, do the research. Get yourself a lock. Go through it. I love when they put this on there. Can't pick what you can't see. I love it, but in this case, it might actually be true. So this is the lock in pieces. It's got a lot of parts. It's got a lot of parts. The Bible is here. The core is here. The sliders aren't there right now. This connects the key to the thumb turn, which is, yeah, that's the thumb turn right here. No, thumb turn's right here, sorry. Yeah, there are a lot of parts to this lock. But I did the research, and it is a complicated lock to use. Most locks, all you have to do is find the key, put the key in, turn the key, lock's open. This lock, you got to find the key, find the chamber, put the key in the chamber, load the key, turn the key to the key towards the core, push it in, and then turn the thumb turn, and now your lock's open. So it is a complicated lock to use, and I'm not a huge fan of this lock. It is made of cheap hot metal on the inside. The outside seems quite decent. The body of the lock is seems to be quite sturdy, stainless steel. But on the inside, it's all cast hot metal. So here, this is off of their website. No picking, no bumping, no key impressioning. This is the part that I like. Just because they tell you it can't be done doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be done. So step 3 was for my hypothesis. My hypothesis was, after I did all the research, which I missed a part, I got this. In the new version, these sliders have no springs. because the old version was you could self-impression. So they took springs out. So they said that there were no springs. So I thought, well, if there's no springs, if you tap something with those springs, you could vibrate the wafers up. Unfortunately, the research was wrong. They do have springs, just not on every wafer. Here you can see there are 3 holes. This one, all that is a ball bearing that just gives you that click when you turn it back. That's all that is, and this lock is full of those. Little ball bearings and springs that just click when you turn it back. So these two holes here do have pins that push down on sliders. I believe it's 2 and 4. So 1, 3, and 5 don't have springs, but 2 and 4 do. Doesn't really matter. These are the chambers for the wafers. Here you can see where that ball bearing rests. And then, so you got 1 spring on 4 and 1 spring on 2. This is what the key looks like. It's just sliders. There's a lot of meat on this side, as you notice. There's a lot of meat on this side. So if you wanted to make a tension tool, you have all this area to work with without interfering with the sliders. Right? That's a lot of material that you could use. Don't make the tools. I cut a 1/2-inch plug follower, ground it down. I formed essentially this out of an aluminum follower. I cut these prongs out of a key, and this is just press fit in there. I just made that out of a piece of brass key. They're nice and thin, so this is all the material that I had on the side of the sliders that I could use and to tension the lock. So I was able to get a tensioner in there, use my Stanley pick, and tap the lock open. All I did was just wrap the top of the lock, and it popped open. This one did take a while the first time. I think 2 minutes, 48 seconds to get it open the first time. But I did get that time down to about 12 seconds. Woo! Yep. Now we'll go on to the Bowley lock. This is why most people are here, most likely. Again, step 1, do the research. Chris Aarons had picked this lock before me, but unknowingly we were both working on it at the same time. We had a similar approach. He went one way, I went the other, but it's quite similar. So do the research, get yourself a lock. Online, there were a lot of videos online about this lock, and in the Bowley video demonstrating the lock, they said, these are the guys that said that they believe that this lock could be picked with 5 tools. But they didn't think anybody would be able to get 5 tools into the keyway. But they're the ones that gave me the idea. So that's the key. It's got 5 pins. They number their pins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's still, if you count from the bow of the key back, it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But most manufacturers you would think would be 1, 2. Anyways, you get it. So this is from the Bowley website. This is how it works. You put the key in. All the pins are lifted above the idler. This is the idler ring right here. This is the core, and this is the body of the lock. So all the pins are lifted above the idler right now, but the shear line for the core is right here. So now all the pins have dropped down to the correct height. Pins are at shear line, and you turn it, and there you go, you can operate the lock. So this is my little bit of artwork. Where am I? So I made a key out of paper, just did some arts and crafts here. So this is what it looks like. This is the top of the lock with the key inserted with the pins lifted above the idler. This is the idler here, by the way. This is the cutout in the idler. And you can see all the pin stacks are different heights. Here they drop down. Now all the pin stacks are the same height. We're at shear line here. And I don't have a picture of it open. That's fine. So you can see here there's a shroud on the inside. And if you get your hands on the one that's passing around, you can see it pretty clearly. So you can't keep hitting the wrong button. So you can't get a pick from the keyway all the way up top, right? So the only way to do it really is to mimic the key. It was my thinking at this point. There's the idler. You can see the cutout at the top. So this cutout is 2 millimeters wide. And the pins are 3 millimeters. So when you turn the idler all the way around, the pins don't fall through. That's the core. So there's 6 holes in the back, but this one is only for manufacturing. This hole right here is only so they can put the notch in the back for the tip of the key to tension the core. That's all that hole is for, is to create that notch in the back. So here you can see that's my poor man's version of a cutaway. The idler ring is down. Where is it up? I'm missing a slide. I had one of it up, but you can see the key pin can't fit all the way down to the bottom. It won't just drop free. So step 2 for my hypothesis, again, like I stated, if you the only way to reach the pins would be to shape something like the key and go all the way around it. Oh, here it is. So yeah, you can see now the pins are below shear. Right? All the pins can drop below the shear line if you turn the idler with nothing in the keyway. So the pins can drop down. So my thinking was, if I make something that can allow all the pins to drop to their lowest point, then all the pins would end up below or at shear line. Right? This one's a 0 left. That's why it's at shear. But if I could get all the pins below that shear line, then I could pick them up, because it's pretty hard to pick the pins down when you can't, you know. So that's what I did. There's my paper version. So you just pull them all, and you notice they didn't all move the exact same distance. Right, this one's right underneath. Oh, wrong slide. That one. So here, they didn't all move. This one didn't move. This one just moved a little bit. This one didn't move much. This one's all the way forward. So that's that would be a 0 cut. So they didn't all move the same distance. So it lifts all the pins to shear line, so that would open, and then this would be to get all the pins above the idler so that you could reset the lock. Because if you leave the idler at the bottom, you can't get the picks out. The pins actually stop the picks from coming out. So step 3, make the tools. This was pretty time consuming. Grab some feeler gauge stock, notched them all out at the pin positions. I shaped them, put little triangles on them. There they are. These are 12 thousandths of an inch. As you can see, these ones aren't all that perfect. I did improve them somewhat. Some of them changed. But there's enough, if you push all the pins all the way in, all the picks all the way in, there is enough room for the pins to drop down to their lowest point. Now, if you notice here, I got 0.5 millimeters for the tensioner, 0.3 millimeters for the picks. So that adds up to 2 millimeters. I don't have 2 millimeters in the keyway. I got 1.96. So I had to sand them down. 0.01. Those are some thin picks. But when you put them all together, they help support each other. So they don't bend sideways. So I was able to get away with it. I could probably get away with having 0.008 of an inch. Probably. So step 4, pick the lock. Put the locks inside, put the picks in, upside down, because you got to turn them around. Turn them around, push the tensioner in, so it's in the cutout at the back. And then to pick the lock, you just slightly pull these back, just a touch. You don't have to go back far, because you only have about 2 millimeters of play front to back on each pick. So you want to pull them back. Most of them are between about 0.5 millimeter and 1 millimeter that they go back. And then locks open. And then to reset all the pins, you just turn it back to the top, pull all the pins all the way back, lifts all the pins all the way up, and then you can get them out. So knowing what you do now, how many of you people think that this lock is pickable? I would agree. But step 1, do the research. Step 2, form my hypothesis. Step 3, make the tools. Step 4, pick the lock. And I talk a lot faster than I thought I was going to. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
And again, just a reminder, please repeat the questions for the audio.
Yep.
You mentioned that you had another colleague in the scene who was having a go at the same time.
Chris Aarons, yes.
Yeah, could you explain what route he took down?
So he went with 3 tools instead of 5. So what he did was he was using 1 tool for pin 1, and then one tool for pins 2 and 3, and then 1 tool for pins 4 and 5. And so he would move his pick forward and backwards to pick the pins. But as thin as they are, it's tough to push them to lift the pins. It's a lot easier to pull them. Because the idler helps, the shroud helps support the pick so it doesn't bend down. It's just a ramp to get them up, right? So he did have success with his picks. He was able to pick multiple locks. I was given 3 locks by Bowley, and I was able to pick all 3 of those in under 10 minutes. Pick them live. 2 of them took me about 2 minutes, and 1 took about 5. And they do come with security pins. There's 1 spool and 1 serrated in each lock. The serrated usually doesn't come into play because he likes to put it on the 0 lift pin. For some reason, yeah. Yes? Yes. That would be my thinking also. Repeat the question. So he was asking about the 2-pronged version on the padlock. If I was thinking of doing the exact same approach, having 1 pick per pin, and yes, that is my thinking of doing that also. Because if you look at the key, the tip of the key is 2 millimeters, but the shaft on the key is actually a lot wider. It's almost 4. So you could get 10 tools along in the center hole of the lock. and 4 going down and 5 going up. You should be able to. Any other questions? Yes.
Because of how thin the tools had to be, did you have to make a duplicate set in case the first set was damaged when you were attempting to unlock?
So the question is, because the tools were so thin, did I have to make a duplicate set? No, I didn't have to. I did make a duplicate set. I refined. I have a set here, and these are the best of the 2 sets. The best picks out of the 2 sets. So I did mix and match. The second set, it didn't actually work as good as the first one. But I had 2 picks that worked better out of that one, so I did mix and match them a little bit. But I didn't have to because you could take that lock apart to dump the pins out so that you could get your tools back. I didn't have to have them ready ahead of time. I'm working on a bench, I'm a hobbyist, I'm not out in the field, right? So if you do break those tools in a lock out in the field, you have to take it apart. Yeah. Yes?
So Bowley seem very pro community. And
Yes, they are.
Which is great. Do you know if they're taking the feedback? Are they doing?
Absolutely, great question, and that leads into something that I am allowed to disclose. So yes, Bowley seems to be pro-community, and he was wondering if they are taking this feedback and implementing it in their research for future versions. Yes, they are. They are working on a version 2. Ryan Bowley has contacted me and asked me what my opinions were on version 2. They are making it more locksmith friendly. So it'll be easier for locksmiths to cut keys.
Are you willing to reveal what next lock you want to set your sights on?
The 543? Absolutely. And that, sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah.
What is the next lock I'm willing to, I got my sights on is the Bowley 543. That is the next one, and for those attending the workshop, it might be done today.
It's not to say otherwise we'll see you back next year.
Possibly. They're hard to come by because if it's not a novelty lock, a lot of manufacturers aren't innovating. They're not, it's hard to manufacture a high security lock that is not pickable. And really, a lot of manufacturers don't care that their locks are pickable. I mean, there are locks out there that a lot of people have picked, but it takes half an hour on a bench. So it's going to take 2-3 hours in the field. So they don't care that it can be picked, so they're not innovating along that route. So unless it's a novelty lock, there aren't a whole lot of new developments coming from the mechanical lock side of things. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot of prospects out there right now of unpicked locks. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you for your time.